Hello and welcome to Discus for Virtual Teaching and Learning, grades 6 through 8. I'm Linda Heimberger, the Electronic Resources Training and Outreach Coordinator for the South Carolina State Library. The first thing you'll need to know today as we take our tour is the Discus login prompt that you may get when you are off of a campus computer on a mobile device, smartphone, etc. You will need that username and password, and you are welcome to request it from your school's media specialist, your school's Discus contact person, or you may use your school-affiliated email account to request it from the South Carolina's State Library's Discus Help Desk. This is what we'll be covering today. Learn 360 World Almanac for Kids Intermediate, TeenBookCloud, a set of eBooks, Credo Reference eBooks, and the SmartSearch interface that will allow you and your students to search more than one of our databases at a time. We will also be taking a quick look at tutor.com. This is one of our latest acquisitions that allows students grades K through 12 throughout South Carolina to be able to connect live to a real-time tutor. So let's go live to our Discus website and get an overview of what we have to offer for the middle school students and teachers. You can see from our tabs across the top there's an A to Z list access point. That is just that. All of our databases that are offered for the schools in alphabetical order. I'll just do a quick demo here. If you're looking for our tutor.com, for instance, you would just go to the A to Z tab, click on the letter T, and scroll down alphabetically to the tutor.com logo. If you want to view all of our grade levels broken out by each level, you can go down to your middle school here and you will find a textual listing of each of the databases. So you can tell today we're only going to be covering 3 or 4 of these, so you certainly have more options to learn here as well. You are also able to sort by subject. So if you are teaching geography, for instance, and you only want to break out of those relevant databases, you can then look at the list here that is then broken out by subject and grade level. And then finally, for you teachers, the training tab here on the right will actually link you to our live training calendar, which will tell you additional options for training, and you are all welcome to register for any of these. If you're a little short on time and just would like to view some of our pre-recorded videos, you would want to go to the training tab online archive, and that's where you're going to find some general Discus types of information, such as your Discus for hybrid learning here, middle and high school Discus resources, reading aids in Discus, STEM content in Discus, etc. You will also be able to look by vendor at the different database recordings that we have here for our Gale databases, our Learning Express library, etc. Just want to highlight those tutor.com videos here are some of the newest that we've posted. If you would like additional, more in-depth information on how to connect to a real-time tutor after today's session concludes. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and go out to grade level middle school. We're going to choose Learn 360. Learn 360 is relevant for pre-K through 12th graders in South Carolina, and you'll see across the top we have videos, games and activities, printables, audio, maps and flags, mailbox activities, and STEM lessons that you have to choose from. And you're able to download many of these, and you're also able to share these to your Google Classroom. So we're going to go into more detail about how you would do that. Notice at first as you look at these, you have a series of playlists that are broken out by featured elementary, featured middle and high, etc. These are great for you to view to see some of maybe the newer videos or just to get a flavor for what's available out there. Notice here the featured printables. These are PDF handouts that we'll go into in a moment that can be of great resource for you for teaching and learning. But it's best for you if you all view these as teachers. It's easier if you just click on the type of content you're looking for, such as the printable handouts, science diagrams, etc. Notice when I click on printables here, I'm able to then elevator down to science diagram tab, fact sheet tab, or math activities. And the beauty of this is you're also able to limit by your grade level. So once I go down to science diagrams, if I'm interested specifically on something to do with weather and climate here, for instance, components of weather, maybe you're teaching on the water cycle in middle school there. If I click on this components of weather, notice now of the 98 titles that I have available here, I'm able to limit using this filter just to those that would be relevant for the middle school grades. So you can see here 35 of them are still relevant to that grade level. And you can see if you are introducing a topic on, say, cloud formation here, or wind scale, or you're actually going through a lesson and you would like to provide a printable handout or just provide a PDF for them to be able to view, you can easily click on any one of those. I'm clicking on the lightning strike here as an example. And as it loads, you'll see that it is a PDF format. So you then have the option as a teacher to either download this to your device, share it out to Google Classroom as you see here on the right, or you can share a link to this via email simply by going to Share To. And as you see, the tab is on email here. You can email it directly to a student, a parent, another colleague, and what you'll actually be emailing is a link to this specific resource. These are great if you want students to even print these off at home. Those that are at home learning, maybe since you are at Rock Hill Schools are a virtual academy for middle grades, sometimes it's great just to rest the eyes and look at a printed handout. So that's an option for the students as well. So that is in the printables section under our science diagram piece. And the other printables follow that same pattern. So what you will find when we return to printables here, and it looks like it's taking just a second here to load. Let me see if I can get back to that easily. Those printables that may also be of interest are other fact sheets or math activities. So if you're teaching about westward expansion, for instance, or the Civil War, etc., as you see here on the right, perhaps you are introducing students to even some sports rules for those of you who may be coaches or teaching different sports. But you'll notice also the world history that is available here as well. So these are going to follow the same pattern. If I go to the U.S. History, Expansion, and Reform here, I'm still going to be able to do the filtering. And you will note you're able to do this whether you're using printables, activities, or videos. So that will be very easy for you to apply to each different type of piece. So if I want to then again, print off or utilize any of these PDF fact sheets, I would be able to do that and share that in a virtual world as well. And the last one that you see under printables are the math activities, and these are broken out here: algebra, calculus, and geometry. So if you wanted to also add a link to one of these handouts, you would be welcome to do that as well. So we're going to go back to the home point here. Many of you are teaching geography, and you would need access to maps and flags. The maps and flags here are very robust within Learn 360, and you will find that not only are there Canadian and United States maps and flags, but there are also country maps and flags, historical, and thematic maps. So this again can be very useful in your instruction, either introducing a unit, or perhaps you want to break students out in groups and assign different countries, have them learn about the geography, for instance, of the countries. And you can see as you go into each one of these that there are just listed out alphabetically there. The historical maps are divided by U.S. and world history. And then the thematic maps are going to be more like your military maps related, things to do with the economy, perhaps demographics, etc. of various countries. And then of course your United States maps and flags are here. I'll just click on South Carolina there as an example, and you'll be able to see all of the options that are available here: an elevation map, locator map, the flag, an outline map if you wanted to use that for one of your maybe map tests there. You have that option as well. So that is a quick overview of the printables that are available to you. And we're just going to jump back to the landing page here for you to explore a couple of the other options. The STEM lessons that you see here are actually integrated into math, biology, chemistry, etc. So these are going to be more hands-on application of math concepts. For instance, if I click on the math lessons here, and we look and see the piece with writing and solving simple equations. If we click on that, you're going to be able to pull up STEM activities that apply some of those lessons for the student to be able to utilize there. And again, you can link those out to your Google Classroom, or you can share a link to it via your email. And then the videos are what most people recognize who have used Learn 360 before, because the video collection in Learn 360 is very robust. And you will find here, as you look at these, again, you'll see all the different playlists that I mentioned at the beginning of Learn 360. But also, this is a great way for teachers to just quickly get a bird's eye view of the videos that are available here. So if you click on Browse Subjects right here, you're going to be able to see all the different numbers of videos in the mathematics section, the world languages, for those of you teaching Spanish, for instance, here. You've got Spanish language and learning. You've got videos that are just in Spanish. Sciences here. Some of you may be doing environmental science there. English language arts. And social studies here in the center. So if you are only interested in viewing say the geography here for middle school, you could use the same steps as we did for the other types of information to limit those. If you're teaching ancient civilizations here on the left, same thing. So we could go to ancient civilizations and go to our filters and filter those out that apply to the middle schooler. And also, many of these have additional filters depending on the topic you're searching. For instance, you might be looking for maybe an animated video or a documentary, an educational video. So you're able to select and filter by those types as well. So once you open a video or you're looking at a section here, if I'm talking about early Chinese civilization, I can just click on the title of the video and notice you have all of the great options you typically do with your YouTube, where you can look at the closed captioning. So as you're showing this in class, you may want to do the full screen and the closed captioning virtually so that the students are able to see and hear well. You'll notice there are two tabs here on the right in the blue bar. The segments will indicate if there are additional videos inside this full program. So notice here, these are all of the segments that make up the program. So we have the first emperor, we have the Han Dynasty, we have the Tang Dynasty, etc. Notice though, these are all segments within that one video. So if you wanted to just be able to share a segment to your Google Classroom, you would be able to pick or choose that as well. You wouldn't have to necessarily watch the entire 20-minute video or show that in class. Notice to the right of the Segments tab is the Transcript tab. This can be a great help to teachers to review ahead to see if this particular segment or video hones in on the topics that you want to be covered for your lesson. This is also great for students. They're able to download these. You see the download icon here to be able to actually print out or download that transcript. So if they need to refer back to something for facts, that would be at their fingertips as well. Let's say you did do a group project with your students and you assign them each different, perhaps Tang dynasties and dynasties in China. They would all be able to cite this source because notice under this video, there's a source citation for MLA and APA style. So they're going to be able to identify the source information immediately, whether they're using a video or an activity or a fact sheet. Any of those resources in Learn 360, they're going to be able to easily document where they found their information. So far, all we've done is actually browsed through some of the various pieces of this Learn 360. We've kind of skimmed over games and activities. I do want to point this out to you as well, because these are also available to you for reinforcing different math concepts, reading concepts there as well. So those are available to you for the various content areas that you see here. So that's one more piece that is worth your time if you would like to review some of these pieces. Finally, with Learn 360, I want to show you all the ability to search directly. So maybe you don't want to just browse world history in general or geography in general. Maybe you have something very specific that you want to find a title for, or a clip or a segment. You can actually go directly in to do a search, and I'm just going to do a search on water cycle. Again, this is a keyword search, so you might get quite a few resources that come up to begin with here. But notice across the top all the videos that are available, audio, experiments, images, printables, etc. You can actually browse all of those different forms of information for your search on water cycle. So if I'm only interested in a quick water cycle video, I can just browse here because that's where it's defaulted to. There's audio listed here. There's 6 audio related ones, and again they're going to be just the audio piece. And then experiments here on this tab for them. So recycling using cloud patterns to predict weather, etc. So those are little science experiments that go along with it. Images, if you're wanting to illustrate something in class, or perhaps a student needs something to utilize for their report. These are available for them as well. Printables, as we mentioned before, these are going to be any of the printables that are related to the water cycle. So as you can see, your direct search is going to be much more on the money when you're looking for a specific concept, keywords, or subject there. So that is a quick overview of the Learn 360 module. And again, we do additional trainings on these types of information for teachers. We do after school meetings. We focus on specific aspects and content areas. And that's something that those of you who are attending in the Rock Hill Schools Virtual Academy will be working with Dr. Wolf to follow up to see what you might be of interest there. So I'm just going to pop back into our middle school list, and I do want to pause for a moment to tell you that this can be very overwhelming to see all of these resources that are freely accessible to you and your students. So I just want to caution you as we look at the various databases, if something really rings your bell and you say, hey, I can apply this in something I'm preparing, a lesson that I'm preparing even as we speak, just get used to that one database for a while. Play around with the different resources, see how they work for you, and then continue to branch out and build on some of these other pieces that I'm going to be demonstrating for you. So the next piece that we're looking at is the World Almanac for Kids Intermediate. And this is also found on the middle school page here. This is an amazing virtual resource for you teachers because it's not only very accessible and a very nice interface for your students to be able to conduct research, but there are some great features specifically for teachers. And I'm going to show you here under the teacher resources that you see on the top right-hand corner of your screen. You're going to be able to find lesson plans, additional printables. So if we were talking about the printables in Learn 360, you also have them for the World Almanac for Kids Intermediate. And inside this piece, you can actually, again, do a direct search, or you can view the topics in order to locate information. But in the teacher resources, you also have science projects and outline maps. So if you just need a quick outline map, I'm going to click on this part in the teacher resources. If you wanted to give a map test, for instance, and you wanted to be able to access one of these maps here for the world, the 50 states or Canada, I'm going to just click on the world here and show you. These are in alphabetical order. I had someone ask me, actually on more than one occasion, where they would actually locate just the world itself. So they found all the countries, but the world outline map is also found here in alphabetical order as well. So if you just needed to start with perhaps labeling countries or having students color in particular countries or continents or oceans, etc., that's a really quick and easy piece that you can use. And notice the downloadable section on the top far right of your screen there. So it is downloadable or printable as well. So that's a great piece for teachers, especially if you are doing perhaps a map test, or if you are wanting to get an idea of the background information your students already have. How much do they already know about geography of an area before you start a lesson? To complement that, we're going over to the user interface side outside of the teacher resources, and we're going to look at the More section, because notice the students have access to maps here that are detailed. So they are going to be able to print or download the maps by which to study before they take a quiz, or if you've assigned each one of them a country in a particular continent to explore. These are going to be very easily accessed maps for the middle schooler. And the World Almanac for Kids itself, intermediate, is actually targeted for 6th graders through 9th graders. So let's say you're actually a teacher of English or social studies, another content area. The topics tab that you see at the top will break out various topics, various content areas for you and your students. So as you see here, if you're studying artist, if you're studying scientist, etc., these are going to give you all the biographical information there, more geography that you see here. On your far right, you'll see your social studies piece, life sciences. And for those of you who are teaching English and want to do perhaps some basic training on writing argumentative papers in the middle school era, you can see the take a stand just in the center of this. We're going to go there just for a moment. This is a great way to introduce your students to learn to analyze questions and arguments, pro-con sides on each side of an argument. So these are going to be much more relevant to the middle schooler because they're going to be questions that they might be interested in giving their input and contributing their opinions. Should the U.S. keep the penny in circulation? Should schools still have summer breaks? Should animals have rights? Should student athletes be required to get good grades? So these are going to be much more accessible to the middle school, early middle school, particularly age student. And these are going to be something they can wrap their head around. Once they move on to high school, they may be dealing with sanctuary cities and other very complicated topics that are maybe more advanced. But these actually help the student to be able to think through sides of an argument. I'm just going to click on the background link here. They're going to be able to look at areas of an argument. They're going to be able to look at what supporters say about students having homework and what those opponents say. So they have the pro and con issues that they can analyze and see how they're written. And then for each section, there's a your turn that you see here in the index that allows them to write what they think about an issue. Many times, as you all know with ELA, sometimes it's best just to get their ideas about a topic before they start exploring what other people think about it. That helps a lot, as we know, to avoid plagiarism as well. So that's something that you can use there. Notice in the center, there's the read aloud option. You are also able to share this again, but with an email link if you want to do that, or to print out this. So if you link to this and ask the student to download it and print it out, you can do that as well. As we mentioned before, citation information is available for all of this material. So you can see, once again, they're going to easily be able to cite if they have perhaps quoted something from what one of the supporters argue there. They're going to be able to easily go down and locate that citation for that information. So the other piece that I want to show you as well, those of you that might be teaching relation to financial literacy, perhaps even in relation to geography, where you're talking about different economies of countries, etc. These money matters that you see under health and guidance are excellent for the middle schooler to be able to explore some real life thinking about money, about spending money, earning money, about what's wise and unwise, shopping habits, etc. These can be some great topics for ELA as well. Notice when we click on any of these, I'm going to click on the smart spending tips here. Again, there is a read aloud available for the student to be able to hear the article read to them. So that can be very helpful for those students that both learn orally and visually there. And notice back on the teacher side of the house in your World Almanac for Kids, you have in Teacher Resources, you have the ability to look at all of the printable handouts there in the center that relate to all of the topics in this resource. So on the far left, you're going to see the biographies, the math, the life sciences, etc. So you can see here under Health and Guidance, you have different handouts that you can give the students in addition to having them perhaps read the article about spending money. For instance, credit card math, balancing a checkbook, electricity bill math, calculating cost, creating a Thanksgiving budget. I'm just going to pull one of these up for you to see. So these are going to be really quick handouts that sometimes can be just what you need to be able to reinforce some of your lessons or some concepts within your lessons there. You're also able to look within the life sciences, for instance, here, biomes. We have the answer keys to these. You can actually go and do fill in the blank on the circulatory system. You can also have students be tested over what they know about birds or what they know about different aspects that you're covering in a lesson or a unit. So this would be something that students could utilize just to have one more ability to reinforce some of that knowledge. And again, sometimes just being able to print something out and use a pen and paper to think it through, maybe even as you gather back together to discuss it virtually in class, they could actually take some of that time of not having to stare at a screen to work an exercise. So you can find, again, all of these are found in the teacher resources and then broken out by section there. So you can also, again, go back to just the user interface topics there on the left. And what I want to show you is when you go into something such as your ancient civilizations there under social studies, this is going to be the typical format for students to get used to, as far as all the textual information will be on the left for each one, depending on whatever the topics are there. All the textual information will be on the left. There'll be fun facts, and sometimes these are great for you to use if you're introducing a lesson. But notice also that that's followed by any videos that are relevant to that topic, the overall topic. And you can always click See All in order to pull up all of the videos there that are available. The Greek Acropolis, you see here, Understanding Hieroglyphics there. And then if you want to just view all the videos for Native American life, symbols of American freedom, etc., forms of government, you're able to just view all of those within that content area as well. So if I go back to my videos here, back to my topics, I'll point out one more piece to you, and that is within the topic areas, you will also find, when we go back to ancient civilizations here, games and puzzles related to the topic, and then key people. So if you're wanting them to do a report on a person from ancient Greece, or you're wanting them to do a report on Ramses the Great, for instance, there are going to be information about the people there. Notice at the bottom of each bucket, most of these resources in the database will have some sort of glossary, whether it's about volcanoes or weather, in this case, ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, etc. This is great, especially with the new standards where you're really needing to pull in evidence that the definitions and glossaries of words have been well covered. This can be an exercise that you actually assign students to go through and define different key terms for their topics as well. So that's a pretty good overview there of our World Almanac for Kids Intermediate. And again, that one is accessible from the Discus site, from the middle school page. You can also just quickly go to the A to Z list, click on the letter W, and easily access the World Almanac for Kids Intermediate. So just so that you know how easy it is to access these in different ways from the Discus site. So we're going to move along now to eBooks. So those of you who are teaching ELA, you're teaching history, even science, there are videos and eBooks that are available to you in TeenBookCloud. And we're going to click on that TeenBookCloud. I also want to tell those of you who are teaching the 6th grade level at middle school, you might be also interested in some of the Tumble books. These two products are provided by the same vendor. So everything that I show you and how you would operate the TeenBookCloud will be relevant to the Tumble books as well. Tumble books are for grades K through 6. So 6 is on the high end of those. And then your TeenBookCloud is going to be for upper 6th grade, 7th grade through high school students. So with TeenBookCloud here, as it loads, you will see that, let's see if I can get this pulled up here, you will see that students can easily view, again, the playlist of the various types of books, fiction, nonfiction, etc. here. You can actually click on the buckets for different ones if you're only interested in fiction and now you want to look at teen fiction, perhaps for your area, more the middle school fiction here. This is a great place to direct students to get them to continue to read. I know over holiday breaks and spring breaks, etc. It's great if you can keep them reading something of interest. Speaking of, there are also graphic novels in this ebook collection that really speak to a lot of students who prefer to have that graphic novel experience in their reading. Something that you can do as a teacher is you can actually link to these titles. So if you want to link an assignment to a particular book there, we'll just look at the Justice Project here, for instance. You can actually link out to that book using our index that is in the top part of this section. So this is something that the students don't really use, but the curriculum coordinators, instructional coordinators, and teachers really love this because they're going to be able to drop this link into an electronic assignment and have everyone read different sections perhaps the first chapter and report out something, etc. You would just go to the index in order to link to a specific title. And you would be able to scroll this in alphabetical order. All of these icons, the red one, the green one, etc., have a key across the top. So if you're only looking for audiobook versions, for instance, there, you can also see that just to the left in the book ID column, that's the book ID that you're going to be able to click on and link to that book. So I'm just going to look at, for instance, Adventures of Tom Sawyer here. If you wanted to link out to this book, you would click on that book ID and copy and paste this link into your assignment. Students may still be asked for that Discus username and password when they click on this link, possibly. But so you would definitely want to make sure you add that to your assignment, the username and password that we mentioned at the beginning of this session. If they are actually on campus, which since typically the Rock Hills middle schoolers are virtual, this won't apply. But if they are at one of the schools physically, in Rock Hill, they would be able to link seamlessly using one of the wired computers at the physical building. So you would just want to say, read the first chapter of Adventures of Tom Sawyer and outline the assignment that you want them to do there. So many people ask how many students can access the same book at the same time. And at this time, this platform doesn't limit access. So students would be able to have access. They're not actually having to virtually check these out. They're just going to be able to be linked to that book. And this is what they're going to see. They're going to be linked to this book, at which point they would then read online in order to open and read the book. I'm just going to click read online here to show you they have some options once they open the book if they want to enlarge that reading text so that it's a little more visible to them with different readers there. Also, if you're showing a particular chapter or section or quote in a book in your virtual classroom, you might want to enlarge that text to be able to perhaps show them how to cite a sentence or to quote or paraphrase, etc. There might be some applications you would want to use for that as well. There is a chapter menu here also for them. So if you've asked them to read a particular chapter or look at a particular quote or page there, you can do that as well. So that would be when you're actually looking in and utilizing one of the books there. Notice you can also do a direct search on the top right-hand corner if you know a specific author or title that you'll be covering. For instance, we'll look up George Orwell here and check out the options for Animal Farm. That's a fairly short read there. So this, we have 1984. We'll just scroll through until we see Animal Farm. So our options here for Animal Farm are the advanced placement version, which may be a little bit more advanced for middle schoolers. Notice it's indicated for grades 9 to 12. But also there's just an audiobook. Anytime you see enhanced ebook, that's going to be an ebook that also provides the option for the student to actually go in and have the narrator read it. So I'm going to click read online just for you to be able to see this. You can see chapter 1 is highlighted here. They do have the ability to turn the pages forward and back at the bottom, just like I showed you on the first book. But notice the far bottom left corner. This is where the student can toggle on or off the narration, which you probably won't be able to hear it at the moment, just because I am going through a headset rather than using the sound on my device. But you can see this can be very useful to students, again, who like to hear it read as they're reading the words.
With the ring of light.
So that's another option again in the enhanced ebooks that you'll find here. And you might have glanced at this whenever I first pulled this up, but I did want to go one step back just to our Animal Farm search results for you to be able to see that many of these have reader's guides and lesson plans that go along with the books. So that might be something of interest to you there as well, to see what other types of support materials as a teacher you could find and utilize with these books. There are also nonfiction books here and listed out. There are many that include historical pieces there, history, civics, even some science-related books, and also a video collection that you'll find here that are broken out by different content areas. So if you're just wanting to link to a quick video, perhaps, and introduce a lesson there, you can do that as well. And then you can also click the View All titles that you see here on the right. And if you want to sort them by title, notice these currently are descending. So they're going from Z to A. So if you want to sort them ascending by title, you can do that as well. And you're also able to sort them by author. Or maybe you are going back into the collection, you want to see what the newest titles are. You can sort with what the newest ones that have been added. So that's something that you can use. Again, TumbleBooks also has the same index option where you're able to link out to titles as well. So again, certainly you are welcome to pause the video at any time and go out to scdiscus.org, jump onto that middle school section and browse any of these books in TeenBookCloud or TumbleBooks and just get familiar with them yourself there. So there's another collection that I want to mention to you here that we've actually broken out in our middle school collection. This is a subset of our Credo Reference, and that's what we are going to go into next. But I want to show you the subset is called DK Eyewitness eBooks, and many of you may already be familiar with this series. But what you're going to love about this, there are about 60 of these titles, but they're perfect for the middle schooler to do reports, essays, research, etc. And you can see they cover animals, countries, places, astronomy, etc. These are those very robust images that are in the book. So they have very great illustrations and images that also help to demonstrate different aspects of pieces. I'm just going to jump into the book here called Earth. Notice once a student goes into one of these DK Eyewitness books, they are still in that Credo Reference resource, which we're going to look at in more detail. But this collection is also, they're able to search within this book for a particular piece. So if they're looking at Earth there, but they want to look for something specific like, let's just say igneous rocks, they can directly search within the book to find any of the information in that title. And again, the really good images where they explain things here are also available on the different pages, as you see here. And then students could actually, once again, cite their source very easily here. You're going to have APA or MLA style, depending on what you want to use with them. And also that the ability to share this. They can share this out to their Google Drive. If they want to send it to their Google Drive along with the citation, they can do that. If they just want to save it to a file, they can do that. Or they're able to print a PDF of that particular piece. And they have the option to email it as well for schools that allow the students to use email there. So that particular sub collection of ebooks within Credo Reference, again, is easily accessed from your middle school page on the SC Discus site. So we're going to actually close out of, let me just try to close most of my tabs at the top here. I want to show you, going into Credo Reference, what Credo Reference itself actually is. Credo Reference is has over 900 titles. Now there are over 1,000 here listed of specialized reference books, homework helpers, etc. that can help your students understand and search by concepts. So if you have a student who maybe you're just introducing the periodic table and you want to find any of those resources in this database that can help you introduce a lesson or help students do homework assignments, etc. Notice this reference collection will pull up any of the titles that reference or illustrate or discuss the concept. So you have the Student Science Dictionary here, you have Guide to Human Thought, etc., the periodic table and the Penguin Dictionary of Science. So if students are just wanting to wrap their head around a concept or get additional information on something, you would be able to also link out to this page. So notice at the top dark blue bar, you see page link. That's going to then give you a link to this periodic table search. So if you wanted to link this to an assignment and tell them to peruse the various books for something, whether you're a music teacher or whether you're sciences, even your ELA teachers there can do this. You're able to link to the search results. You're also able to link directly to a title. So if you're only interested in the Student Science Dictionary here, and you particularly want them to view or review this piece, you can simply go back up to the page link as you're viewing that article, and notice now it's actually giving you that article specifically to link to there. This database also provides the read aloud, so the students are able to turn on or toggle on and off to have this read aloud to them as well.
The chemical elements according to their atomic structure.
Also, this can be translated. If they want to translate this into Spanish, for instance, they can actually translate this using the Google Translate. And you can see this is now available to them so that they can read it in their native language. So I'm going to return back to the English language here and show you another aspect of this wonderful, robust collection. And that is you can actually search by titles as well. So if you go to the Smart menu, the little 3-bar Smart menu here, and choose to search by all titles, this is much more relevant for you as teachers and educators than your students. But if you wanted to search and only find those titles that included a particular topic for you, so if you want any of those books that include United States history in the title, for instance, you can search on those. This is only one, so that's probably not the best search example there, but let's do one that'll give you a little bit more robustness here. Let's just say science in general. So you can see there are 32 different titles. So you can actually create a reference shelf of these titles. If you want to link to this entire list of titles, you would just use the page link to now link to this list for the students. For those of you who may be working with STEM related pieces there, I'm just going to go back to all title search again and do title contains. We'll just do STEAM. So like for instance, the STEAM jobs that are here. If you wanted to link to just all of these STEAM related books and have a little electronic bookshelf for students to peruse careers in STEM and STEAM, you could link to that list and have them perhaps pick one of the books, go in and learn about some of the glossary, some of the vocabulary used within that particular STEAM field, maybe get familiar with what they would need, what kind of education they would need to, in this case, become a game developer, etc. They can always view that table of contents if they're wanting to look at art and animation related to game development, for instance. They could do that. So this is a very robust resource that you are able to utilize in the virtual world. So I'm going to go back to the Credo Reference main page there, and I'm just going to type in a subject for you here. Again, it might be that you're introducing literature, you're introducing short stories, etc. I'm just going to do a broad search on literature as an example, but you could also use uh, American Revolution. You could use particular people, but I wanted to point out this on the right, the concept map that you also have the option to use with students if you're wanting them to explore a particular genre of something, fiction related, poetry related, and each time you click on one of those concepts, those books that include the concept will show up on the left here. So if we're looking at poetry, for instance, here, notice now we've broken it out to different aspects of poetry: iambic pentameter, verse, rhyme, meter, etc. So students can be able to do group work. So if you wanted someone to maybe define a sonnet and report back to class on a sonnet, or rhyme scheme, etc., that would be available to them there. We can also go back and conduct an entire new search, as I said before, if we want to put American Revolution in here. Again, if you don't want all the students, reporting on the same topic, maybe you wanted some to report on Continental Congress and some on people. Notice when you have a historical event, you're going to have a breakdown of key events and key people that relate to that. So if we're just wanting books that include something about the 13 colonies here, we can now break that down one more step and find those resources. So again, there's a lot to this, and you could just use even one element of it to incorporate into a lesson or assignment. Notice the tab defaults to articles, but if there are images available in those books, you're going to be able to find all of those images as well that are found in those reference works. And then finally, you can also go back into some of our other databases just by clicking on the links to the right. If you then want a student to explore what other types of our databases may also contribute information about the 13 colonies, they can click on Britannica here and then be able to go in and see what's available in another one of our databases about topics. But that's for another day. We don't want to get too detailed and crazy here again. But there's just a lot to be found on the Discus platform. So I'm going to quickly go in now and show you what SmartSearch is. SmartSearch actually allows students to search across several of our databases at once. So the Discus Kids is pretty much for K through 5, K through 6th graders. And I'll just click on it to show you. It's SmartSearch Kids, and it's kind of broken out that K through 5, K through 6 databases. SmartSearch is going to be more for your upper level 6th graders through your 12th graders here. So if you are wanting them to go in and do a quick search, we'll just use water cycle as our example again, just following through with that same sort of example. But if you wanted them to search Maya Angelou or short stories or a particular author to research, etc., you could do that as well. There will be a research starter here for the student, usually at the top. Notice there are related images along the right. So if they, again, are needing an image or you're needing an image to demonstrate a concept, that's available to them. But the beauty of a SmartSearch is it's very much like Google in that you are searching across all of our Discus not all of our Discus databases, but the majority of our Discus databases here. So they are not out on the open web as they will be in a Google search. They're still using all of these reliable published printed sources that they can be able to easily cite and know that they're credible sources. So notice on the far left, they can actually reduce this number. So again, that's a huge number of results, just like they would find when they search Google. But they're going to be able to limit those searches if you want them to just find articles that were published in the last few years. So if you wanted just maybe the last 5 years, the most recent articles that are there on the water cycle, they can limit by date there on their filter on the left. They can also limit to just specifics types of information. So if you're only wanting them to perhaps locate eBooks that include something about the water cycle or magazine articles, they can limit there as well. And I do want to pause just for a moment to let you know that those librarians at the school librarians in York County and Rock Hill, they are going to know a lot about this Discus too. So I recommend that you get in touch with your media specialist as you're working through some of these if you want, additional information. It may be such that in this overview today that you are overwhelmed in the overview, but all you can remember 2 months down the road is, I know she found some ebooks on the water cycle in that training. Can you help me? You're always welcome to email me as well. I'll give you that information as we conclude. But also, just for immediate assistance, you might want to work with your school's media specialist. So in this particular piece, when we limited to our water cycle, I'm just going to click the full text to show you a couple of more things you can do with the book here. Students are able to email pages from the book to themselves. They're able to easily cite it there at the top middle. You'll see cite. So they're going to be able to go down and find their MLA citation to be able to refer to this book if they use it as a research material. And then also there's a permalink. So if you wanted to link to this title in your instruction or assignment, you can do that. And then students are able to upload and link to their Google Drive also. So they're able to do specific, either the current page or a set of pages. So they're not going to be able to upload the entire book. That would probably break the electronic copyright rights there, but they're going to be able to use the particular section in which they are in need of. So they can view the table of contents here on the left. They can use that to navigate throughout the book there. They can search directly. So if they're only wanting to search within the book on a particular piece, maybe they're looking for the word condensation in relation to clouds or in relation to the water cycle. So they can find the glossary there in the book. They can also find where it's actually mentioned in the book. So we can go into much more detail on SmartSearch another day, but I do want to let you know, especially as teachers, that you are able to do a lot of this searching across multiple databases just to save yourself time to sort of find out what is available from each database. So the very last thing that we are going to touch on here is going to be our tutor.com. And this is important because, especially in the virtual world, as regular brick and mortar classrooms have gone to virtual, because so many students are needing help outside of class. They don't really have that chance to be in the hallway and ask their teacher a question or ask for a time to meet with them, etc., etc. So what you're going to find when we returned out to the Discus page here, on each grade level page, if we go back to middle school, you'll find tutor.com on the right here. And they do need to go through the Discus site to get to this resource. You, again, we're just going to touch the surface of what's available with tutor.com. But again, if you want more information, there are more videos in our training tab on online archives there. And we could also do a more in-depth tutor.com demo for you if your school requires that. They can also just go out to the A to Z list, click on T for tutor.com, and access it from this logo. So whichever place they already are, they're easily able to get into that. Notice here they can connect directly with the tutor from the hours of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. So if they've failed a math test and they're struggling with a particular type of math problem, for instance, or maybe they're needing some assistance with reading, science, you're going to be able to look at the buckets here that are available within math. All of these subjects provide real-time tutors online. So you have elementary math, algebra, basic math, algebra 2, etc., all the way up from pre-K through grades 12. So if a student did want to be tutored with an elementary math problem, when they click on to connect directly with a tutor, they do not need to unlock any extra features. So if you're showing this to a class of students or to a parent or a student, just tell them to close out of that little pop-up and keep on trucking, because we've chosen math and we have elementary math here. We could choose 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, etc. If the student wants to speak with the tutor by voice instead of chatting with text, they can choose chat voice here. And then once it connects to a tutor, they'll either be able to use their earbuds or headset, or they can be given a 1-800 number to use their telephone to speak with the tutor. They would just simply enter their question here. If they say, need help graphing an equation, they can do that. If they want to upload, if they have their test saved and they want to attach it and upload the test itself and say, I need help with these 2 math problems that I missed. Or if they are working on an assignment, they can attach a file there. Once that student connects to a tutor, I'm going to show you the tutor classroom just briefly here. This is what will happen once they connect to a tutor. They're going to see a whiteboard and the tutor information on the right. At this point, this is where if they've selected the voice chat, they're going to have an extra pop-up to decide or to indicate whether they want to talk with this tutor via phone or via their computer audio. But they can say here, please help me understand how to get started with this word problem. And then they can copy and paste the word problem there. They can, if they've already given them, uploaded a particular assignment, then that tutor is going to get that when they come on to meet up with the student. So this is really intended for tutoring that is point of need tutoring. So it's just trying to help a student understand how one math problem would be worked and the process of thinking it through. And it's not going to be, they want to be able to apply that to the other types of math problems that they would work with, a word problem or an equation, etc. This is not the kind of tutoring where a student will work with a tutor for an hour each Friday, like you might have with a face-to-face tutor. But this is going to be really that point of need, particularly during those hours when school is already out. But you can see on the left, there are whiteboards that are available to the tutor and the student. They can use multiple whiteboards here. They're able to go in and utilize any of these tools on the left. So if they need to be able to maybe add a math formula or do something to explain here, maybe if they're working with the area of a circle and the tutor wants to remind the student this is the formula they would use, etc., there. There is also the ability to utilize a whiteboard with graph paper. So if they want to use small or large graph paper or just lined paper, they can do that. So if they are trying to learn how to perhaps do the slope of an equation or something, they're going to be able to utilize this to have their x-axis and their y-axis and do all kinds of instruction and learning here. There is also other images here that are available, shapes and symbols that can be used, that the tutors can use to explain some of the pieces. There are there's a pencil, there are they can write there, etc. So there's a lot of interaction here. Notice across the top there's also a graphing calculator that can be utilized during a session, a code editor and a text editor. So if they are working perhaps on maybe they've got that argumentative paper assignment and they're working on that and they're wanting to maybe copy and paste some information about how to cite something, working with maybe they're an English tutor there, they can do that as well. So this is a great tool to help fill the gap for, again, that point of need learning where a student really needs to get over a hump in order to get to the next step of completing a homework assignment or understanding concepts there. So that's all that I have for you at this point. I will emphasize, though, one more thing that just occurred to me. You can click back on that home landing page to be able to view for yourself all of the different sciences, computer literacy, social studies. There's some ELL tutors that are available here as well. Spanish language tutors. So if you have students taking Spanish that might be struggling with conjugating a verb, for instance. There are also student study skills. So if you're finding students are just having trouble taking notes virtually or in class, or maybe setting goals for themselves, etc., getting organized for the year. There are also parent skills that tutors are available for. Here on your right, parent coaching. If they're trying to work it all out and get this at-home learning thing under their belt. So if they need help motivating their students, their children at home when they're learning at home, or organizing schedules, that's available for your parents. And then finally, for those Spanish-speaking students, there are core contents covered here by Spanish-speaking tutors. So we have math, the sciences, and social studies, in which a student can connect directly with a tutor who speaks Spanish there. And of course they would want to use the voice chat there, or they could actually, again, just text in Spanish if they're more comfortable with that. Notice, though, they would most benefit by changing this English filter, the language filter, to Spanish here. So you would be able to get them started just by being able to select the content area, the specific topic within that content area, and their grade level before they connect to the tutor. So that is all that I have to share with you today. I am going to try to go back and see if we can pull up my slides for a moment, just for you to be able to contact us if there are additional questions that you have. Again, I am Linda Heimberger in the Discus office. If you have any questions about today's training, you're welcome to contact me here. If you have questions regarding the Discus username and password, or technical support, or other general questions about the Discus platform, you can email the Discus office at State Library for those pieces. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that this is going to add a lot of great tools for your virtual teaching and learning.